Welcome to Spirits and Cousins. This is Tish.
And I'm Courtney.
And guess what?
What?
It's time for a new episode.
Woo!
It's been a while.
It has been.
And we've been very busy.
Incredibly busy. That's why it's been a while.
Yes. And all of you out there are thinking, where in the hell have they been? Well, guess what? We've been investigating.
Yeah, we sure have been. It's been a blast.
Yep. I was just sitting here thinking about, as I look at my little list, that we've had 6 investigations in the last 2.5 months and a couple of stories.
Dang. We've done a good amount of stuff.
Yep. And you know why we had to do that? Because there's no new seasons of Kindred Spirits, Ghost Adventures, and all the other ones, Ghost Hunters, all of them. They haven't put out a new season in over a year.
It's been pretty quiet.
It has been. It definitely has been. And we, on the other hand, have been busy and not quiet and trying some new stuff, some new techniques. Hey, Courtney, what's that new device you want to get? There's some sort of new device. Is it from, what is that place? Ghost Hunters? Or
Ghost
where do
Stop?
you get the? Yeah, there's a new.
Oh, now I know what you're talking about. Yes, it's a AC something. Hang on, let me find it. And basically what it does, you and I both cannot stand the static that the spirit boxes give. It makes my brain go haywire.
Mine too.
So there's this device that we can connect to it that should help the staticky go better. I'm excited to look more into it and see if it actually can work. So I need to do research before I get it.
Well, no one ever talks about this, but the actual noise of the spirit box is like somebody running their nails over a chalkboard.
Yes.
And I don't know how they do it when you watch something, say, on television. They must be cutting that all out because in real life, it is the most irritating sound. And so I know you're always adjusting it down, but the more you adjust it, the less sensitive it is. So while we're doing the spirit box, you also have the recorders on to catch anything else that comes through. And now we're using night vision cameras. So when we do an investigation, we can prop that up in one area and go to another area. So that's been good. But
yes, it's been really good.
But as we've said on other episodes, we tend to go in and start with everything, and takes a few hours through a process of elimination. We narrow down what we're going to end up using. With that said, I've set up that camera, the night camera, and we just leave it. And then I go back after and I look at footage. And then we even set up sometimes iPads. It just depends on the situation.
Exactly.
So that's been fun. I think I got back from Michigan in December and we're in April, and to do this many investigations is pretty exciting. So if you are ready for it, I think we should just kind of jump in and start talking about what we've been doing.
Let's do it.
So I'm going to start at the beginning, and that is, as you all recall, Courtney is a tour guide here in Monterey, and she's become friends with all the people. I swear to God, you become friends with all the people that run the city and that own all the buildings and manage all the buildings in the city. And Monterey has a lot of haunted buildings, and somehow, I don't know how, but somehow you got approval, and they're like letting us into these 150-year-old buildings. We have them to ourselves all night. Here we are in Monterey, and we're in this very famous home of Lara Soto. So maybe it'd be good for you. Let's talk about the Laura Soto investigation. I think we did that was that January? Was it around? It was somewhere in there. I think somewhere
January,
in there.
February. We got
Yeah.
to go a couple times.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Laura Soto first. And then we're going to go through some of the others that we did, and we can share what happened. So just remind everyone real quickly, like the Laura Soto house, what that is.
It is a house out here in Monterey that was built in about the 1840s. And it was part of when Mexico ruled California.
When Mexico ruled the world.
Exactly. No, when they ruled California. And it's this just a really neat house. It's a one-room house essentially with this really odd side space with a door that I wonder if that was either storage or perhaps their kitchen. But otherwise it was one big room and that's it. A family lived there. Actually, 3 sisters lived there at first.
Yeah, what was the deal? They like had one room with a fireplace and they slept in there and lived in there and the whole family lived in there, and then they had that side room that to me looked like some sort of kitchen, but I doubt if it was.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what it was, but that's what it appears to me as a kitchen. And it's been just a really neat house that I've connected with for quite a while. Every time I go, I always get some kind of spirit action. And that's just been so neat and very exciting. So when I do the ghost tours, when I'd go on there, I'd be like, all right, people, get ready, because there's always going to be something. And sure enough, the tree spirit shows up, and then the other spirits come hang out with us. So we got very lucky that I happened to meet this really cool woman, Barbara, and she let us in.
Yeah, it was a pretty neat experience because this Laura Soto house, it's probably more famous for Steinbeck living there for less than a year and writing the book The Pearl, because it's got a lot more history than when he was there.
Yes, it has a lot more history. Interestingly enough, he owned the house for about 1 year, and it was around 1940. He actually only lived there about 6 months. That's it. But he knew it was a house that had a lot of paranormal activity, and he called it the Laughing House because he heard lots of laughter happening.
Well, that's good. Hopefully it wasn't evil laughter.
I mean, I don't think so, but
the funny thing about this house is that it's got a yard and it's got like a little pony wall that goes around, a little stucco wall. And when Courtney does her tours and they go into this yard, she gives them all EMF meters. And as soon as they get near that gate to go in, the meters are going crazy all over the place. And here's the other strange thing, because I've been on this tour twice. Both times when we enter into the courtyard, into the front yard of this house, it's usually in the evening, it's after dark, and it's always windy in Monterey in the evening. And as soon as we walk in that courtyard, every tree around the house stops. I am not kidding, everyone. The leaves stop going back and forth, the branches stop swaying, and the wind stops. Freaks me out. Both times. It happened both times. First time you could say it was anomaly. Second time, I don't even know. So like Courtney said, Barbara was gracious enough to let us in and lock us in for a number of hours. We ended up going twice. The first time we went, we get in there, we're walking around. It doesn't feel particularly I don't know, active at first. And it takes us like 45 frickin' minutes to set up all the equipment because, of course, we have to have our frickin' REM pods on and all the cameras and the recorders and the EMF meters. And then that little side room that Courtney was talking about, she has to go in there, and we set up another camera via the iPad in there. And then we start.
We sure did.
And Courtney somehow gets all this stuff to come up, and they respond to her. And and flashlights. Of course, we had the flashlights because the flashlights always work.
They've
So we're in
always
that
worked.
main room. We're in the main room, and luckily there's a big, huge table in the middle of it for us to set all of our crap on. And um, we start. Courtney starts talking and asking questions, and the flashlights. I mean, they were very active, right?
They were really active, as was the EMF. We got a lot of the spirits talking to us with the EMF.
Yep. And it was very active, and not once did either of us feel that the energy was anything threatening or anything like that. And then Courtney's like, I think we need to go into this room. So this little side room she keeps talking about. The house itself is one big room, original floors, walls, all single wall construction wood. And then attached to it, you go through a door into a room that to me seems like a kitchen, but so you all can picture that. You go through a door on the side of this main room into kind of like a room that looks like a kitchen. Okay, this was like the first weird thing. It'll be interesting to hear how Courtney could explain this. So we walk in. I walked in first. And as soon as I walk in and the room is like dead quiet. And we've got the iPad going with the camera. And I'm trying to walk through the doorway to get out of the way so Courtney can come in. But all of a sudden, I feel like I'm in a fun house. And it's like my equilibrium gets thrown off, and I feel like I'm walking sideways, and I had to lean on a bookcase that was there. And I'm like, I feel like I'm dizzy or something. And you feel like you're in some sort of fun house at the carnival, like the floor is tilted. And then Courtney walks in, and I'm like, I walked in and I told her, I said, Courtney, I feel like I'm off balance, like something's off. As soon as Courtney walks in, she tilts to the right. And I'm like, what is this in here? I did. And Courtney, what do you think it was?
It's a portal. It's a portal.
I've never felt anything like this. You could be in that room, and as soon as you started trying to walk, you feel like you're tilting, like you couldn't hold your balance. And then the strangest thing happened, because remember they had all those stacked chairs in there?
Yeah.
I sat down on one of the chairs, and I'm looking towards the other end of the room, which is the front of the house. And as I'm looking, there's like a window with mini shades. And I look, and like the window is tilting. I don't even know. I don't know I don't know what it was. And I'm like, I don't feel right. I say to Courtney, I don't feel right. I have to get out of here. And I did. I got out of there. I got out of there, and I thought I was going to throw up. And I'm like, what's going on? And I had to go sit in a window. I had to go sit on a windowsill in that big room and put my head down, because I was so sick and nauseous, like I was going to just throw up right there. So what was that?
I think you were having a big reaction to it being a portal. And it didn't seem bad or negative to me. Some people who we've talked with about this Lara Soto house and about that room feel differently. They feel it has more negative energy with it, and that's okay. And maybe it does for them. I don't want to discount that at all. It doesn't feel bad or negative to me. It just feels like people or spirits are moving through. And an odd thing too that was really interesting to me is the doors almost fully matched up. As in you could walk in one door and then just keep going straight and walk out the other door. But the other door was slightly more left.
Oh, yeah. So Courtney's still in there, and she comes out, and I'm like, Courtney, I'm not, like, I feel sick. Like, everyone, like, this is not just like feeling a little queasy. I literally thought that if I stood up, I was going to barf on the floor. And I'm like, what is this? What is this? And I said, okay, I'm going to try this one more time. So I went back into the room again just to see if it would happen again. It happened again, only I got even more, as close to throwing up without throwing up as how I felt. So I had to come back out again, went back to the window ledge, sat there. And then I said, Courtney, I have to get out of this room. I have to get out. I was so sick to my stomach. I walked out of the room, and there was like a hallway, and I went down the hallway and sat on a couch in some other room. the house now is part of a college, and there was like some other room with a couch. I sat there and just breathed, and within like 2 minutes, totally gone. Totally gone. I felt fine.
Yep.
So then I come back in, and as soon as I enter back in the room, I get sick again. And you're in that big room when I get back, and I look at you, and you're like on the floor. You're sitting on the floor next to the table. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, Courtney, what are you doing down there on the floor? And you're kind of like going back and forth, kind of like swinging a little bit back and forth.
Uh-huh.
And you said, I can't say it. I don't want to talk about it. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm thinking in my head, she's like possessed now? What's going on? And we're sharing this with everyone because I don't think there's fear that nothing followed us.
No.
But then you finally said, Tish, it's a portal. This is a portal.
Mm-hmm.
This is a portal. And it's just like all this stuff coming through. And there she was sitting on the ground. Now, I don't know why you're sitting on the floor.
It just felt right. It just felt right. I think it helped me get more grounded because portals are just, it is such wacky energy. It's really just different energy, and it just is a lot of different energies. And so the floor was just grounding to me.
And I said to her, I said, Courtney, what kind of portal? What's coming through? And the first thing that came out of your mouth was indigenous, like indigenous, like natives. And you know, I was trying to connect the dots, and then it made sense because Courtney, on your coast tour and all the history of Monterey, who was there first before or the Spanish came from Mexico and everything? It was
indigenous people.
Yes.
And it almost felt to me like it was that underground railroad in a way.
That's what you said.
Yep.
And, you know, when I got back in there and she's sitting on the floor and I'm starting to, I'm queasy again, not nauseous like I'm going to throw up, but I'm queasy. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go back in that room again because I kept wanting to test it to see, is it a cause and effect or is it in my head?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, every single time, without fail, everyone, you walk through that door, you're not even 2 feet in, and you feel everything tilt to the side again. And I'm like, oh, no. I'm not going to do this. So I stood after I went in the doorway there. I stood, and the iPad, the camera was on and everything. And I started asking questions. And the more questions I asked, the more nauseous I got. And I had to turn around and come back out. And I'm like, Courtney, why is that happening every time? Why is that happening to me? And it was not a good feeling. So
no,
I don't know what we got out of that except to say there is energy there. And you said there's a lot of it.
There's a lot of energy there. And it's really interesting because we have heard other stories about this place. I mean, John Steinbeck, for one of them, hearing all this different laughter in the house. When in the middle of a tour, I've seen a UFO there and several other people saw it.
A UFO in the house?
No, when I was outside the house in the front yard.
I'm like a freaking UFO flying through the house.
No, but it was in the middle of a tour, and all these like 4 other people saw it as well. So that was an interesting experience. And then to actually be in the house was just so cool because it's such a huge part of history. It is just, it's a really neat house. And that one side room does feel incredibly different. And some people would say it is more negative, but that's again where it's like, is it really negative or is that a perception of it? And I don't know. Because everyone can have their own experiences. I don't perceive it to be negative in a bad way at all. I just perceive it to be, there's some energy there, and there's definitely a portal though.
Well, just because something makes you nauseous doesn't mean it's negative energy. It's just energy can do that, right?
Yes, exactly.
So I'm like, Courtney, we got to let's take a break. Let's go do something. Let's go do something else. And she said, well, Across the street is a parking garage. This was the first time we went. Is a parking garage that's supposed to be very haunted. I'm like, great. Let's just I just wanted to get out of there and get some fresh air. And sure enough, we went outside and I felt so much better. We go to the parking garage and it was like, wah, wah. There was nothing.
No, there's nothing at that time.
No, we walked all over the place, but I was just glad to get some fresh air. And as soon as we got out of that place, I felt just fine. I was fine. We go to the parking garage. We're looking around, and I'm like, is there anyone here? Any spirits here? Come on out. There was nothing there. So that was like a little diversion for 20 minutes. We come back. We go back into the room. I don't know what we're going to do, who we're going to talk to. We go back into the Lara Soto adobe house, and we go back in that room, and sure enough, that whole energy comes back again. Now, you can explain better than me, but we didn't really make a whole lot out of it except to say that it was heavy and that it was impactful. But is there anything else you got out of that? I mean, was it just hustle bustle, spirits going in and out like they were being hidden, or was there sadness? I don't know.
No, to me, it felt more just they were using it to get into a different space, maybe a different dimension, different galaxy. It just was, they were using it just to move through. It didn't feel hustle and bustle to me. It felt like maybe some people could have even stayed there for a little bit, but only in that room.
That's crazy. I mean, there was a lot of activity in there. The other thing that I captured while we were standing there was there was this painting of this woman on the wall. Now, I know I'm going to sound like I'm at the haunted house in Disneyland, but I got to say it. So while Courtney's doing her thing, having her discussion with her railroad friends, I'm standing in front of this painting of this Hispanic lady. I think it's Lara Soto. So I am staring at this painting, and I swear her eyes were moving, like open, shut, or something. It was like her brow was going low, and I'm like, okay, I'm seeing stuff. And I just turned away and went back over to Courtney. I think we went back out of that room and we tried to do the headphones. But this is very interesting. What happened? Do you remember
spirit
what
box
happened?
was dead.
Yes. Not only was it dead, it was dead. Like, not just the battery. It just stopped working.
Completely stopped working.
Yes. Courtney had to order a new spirit box.
Sure did.
That was not a coincidence.
No, that was such an interesting moment because we were trying so hard. And for a second, I think I got it to work and then it died again. I'm like, what the heck? This has never given me problems before. Why all of a sudden now? Why this moment?
I don't think whatever was there wanted us to hear what they had to say or hear them or something, because it was working fine. You had it on. And as soon as we wanted to start, so what was going to happen is one of us was going to have a cover over their eyes with headphones on for noise canceling.
Yes.
And the other one, you want to explain what we were going to do? Because I think it's pretty interesting.
Then you have the S-Box, Spirit Box, go plug it in to the device and to your headphones. And then that person is listening. And then you have the person who does not have the headphones or the eye mask on, you have them ask the questions. And the person listening then gives the answers if any have been given by the spirits.
We could never get it to work. Nothing worked. But yet it worked earlier. The spirit box turned on and was fine. Mm-hmm. So that was dead on arrival. We didn't get to do that. And we decided, you know what? Maybe we just call it a night. We knew we were going to be able to get back in. So that was that night. And by the way, we got there like around 10 and we left. Was it like 2? Okay.
I think it was
So,
around 2.
so let's talk about what happened as we were packing up and getting ready to leave.
All right, let's do it.
I'll start with my piece. Every freaking time I go back in that room, I would get sick.
Oh,
So we go back in the room to pack up, which it took us, a good half hour, 45 minutes to get everything set up. Luckily, it packs down faster than getting it set up. So we get it all packed and put away, and we get out of there. We load the stuff up in the car. I was driving. So Courtney lives nearby. So I'm like, okay, I'll go take you home. And we get in the car and I look at Courtney and I said, Courtney, like I do not feel well. Courtney looks at me and she said, all of a sudden I don't feel that well either. I don't feel that great. And I said, well, I said, do that whole cleansing thing while we're sitting here in the car because I don't want anything coming home with us. And she goes, I'll just do it when you drop me off at my place. We'll get out of the car and we'll do it. I'm like, oh, okay. So she's only door to door, 10 minutes tops from there. Yes. It's just some surface streets, honestly. It's probably a mile and a half, maybe. And as we are like halfway there, she says, Tish, I do not feel well at all. And I said, whatever you do not throw up in my car. And at the same time, I said, Courtney, it has not left me yet. I'm still sick to my stomach. I feel so bad. And she says, I'm getting like worse. I feel worse and worse like every minute. I'm like, do not throw up in my car. So, and we're so close to her place. So...
But you also do I need to pull over?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I did do that because
you were not just like, don't throw up in my car. Like, tell me if I have to pull over.
Yes.
And I was so incredibly nauseous. You know where you just feel hot and your mouth is salivating? That's what was happening.
I had someone throw up in my car once on a Saturday, and I turned my car in at the dealer on Monday and got a new car. So it's true. That's a fact. So we get to Courtney's place and she looks at me. I pull up and she's like, I do not feel well. And she has to go up some stairs because she's in the trees of Monterey. She looks down over the beach and the water and everything. And she's like, I do not feel well. And here I am. I feel terrible. And I'm the one saying, I'll carry all this shit up the stairs. You just get up the stairs. I'll carry all the bags up. I don't know what she has in those bags. I swear to God, it's like boulders. It must be that they're like 25 pounds a piece or something. So I get her stuff up there, and she's getting ready to make her way up, and I can tell that you're like, oh, can I make it up the stairs? And I said, wait, you can't go. You got to cleanse us first. You got to get this all. You got to cleanse us so I don't go home with this. We're standing outside of my car in front of her place, and she's doing all cleansing and up and down and releasing on the back and all kinds of stuff. And she leaves. She goes. She I turn around. I leave. I get home, and she texts me, and she said, "How are you feeling?" And this is only like 15 minutes later. And I said, you know what? I said, I just started I felt a lot better. It just all kind of went away about 10 minutes ago. Courtney, tell him what happened.
I could not even make it into my bathroom. I threw up over the railing outside.
So as soon as Courtney threw up, I felt better. Think about that, people. I can't explain it.
Yeah, that was...
You remember that now?
Yeah.
That was like, that was weird.
It was really odd.
Well, all I can say is I'm glad you threw up and I didn't. But
hey, I felt just fine after I threw up.
This is so can you explain what are your thoughts around that whole thing?
Well, it could have been several different things. It could have been you reacting to that portal because you've never experienced that before.
Yep.
And you had this reaction, and then I'm an empath. And so I could have taken that on, but you still felt sick.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking it maybe was, but it also, that's what I'm thinking it probably was. But it just is really interesting that I got so nauseous that I had to throw up. I was literally trying to contain it.
Oh my
As I was
God.
walking up the stairs, and I was like, I give up.
So that was Lara Soto part 1. And then we had a part 2. We went back again. We went back for 2 reasons. One is Courtney wanted to spend some more time in that godforsaken room. So I think she was just trying to get me to throw up. She wanted to spend some more time in that room. And across the street from there is another place that we were going to investigate, which is the auditorium for the college, which has had some very specific activity that's unrelated to the portal. And I think a little darker in nature. But we went back a second time. Not only does Courtney know the lady that runs, seems like all the buildings in the city of Monterey and this campus, but when we got there, we met somebody else that I think helps her or something, and I think kind of like was just kind of pointing out where we should go. But we already knew because we'd already been there. But they had stories. And
Yes.
like, I can't even begin to explain. It was a whole bunch of stuff unrelated. And the long and short of it is they were sharing that in the auditorium that we were going to go to, that there was some dark stuff and a real tall figure with a hat, and like, great. Cause that's the next place we were going, was the auditorium. So it was interesting because we weren't the only ones that had heard things. And this person had experienced that there themselves. So I think that was interesting. But as Courtney pointed out, they weren't very comfortable with whatever they experienced because you were trying pretty hard to get them to tell you more. But we said, okay, put that to the side. So we go back in, we're in that big room, and that night in that room was crickets, nothing.
Mm-hmm. Nothing.
So we go back to Lara Soto the second time. We go in the room. I don't know if like Courtney's thinking she's going to sit on the floor again and kumbaya with the people passing through, but there was nothing. There was no energy there. We got nothing. And
even in that side room.
Even in the side room. How weird is that? Can you explain that?
It was strange. No, because every time I'm there, I get something. So it was very surprising. I did get more things once I walked outside in that front area that I'd like to explore. So I did still get, because that's really consistent. I still got that, but I didn't get anything on the inside. It was so strange. Did you go into the portal room that night?
Yes. It's nothing.
It didn't feel like a fun house again?
No.
We likened it to how you feel when you might go visit the mystery spot in Santa Cruz.
Yes. So, yeah. So we were in and out of there pretty quickly. Like, I would say 30 minutes. We didn't stay long. We didn't really set a whole lot up. And then we went across the street and were led into the auditorium. And that was interesting because I don't know if you remember this, but that second time we went was a full moon that night.
It was.
It was a full moon. And so I thought it was odd that we didn't get anything. And when we went into the auditorium the first time, we didn't really get much either. Do you remember that? We was like,
yeah,
we were sitting there, everyone, we were just sitting there talking to each other because after a while, it didn't matter what we did. Nothing was really coming through. And I remember, this time it's like 1:30 in the morning. And I said to you, I'm like, yeah, I'm just not feeling it. I'm not feeling anything. And so we decided that this spooky haunted auditorium with all these sightings and weird things that happened, I don't know. There was nothing happening that night. Maybe they all had a party they had to go to or something. I don't know.
Maybe.
So we didn't stick around. We left. And fast forward, probably, what would it have been like, 3-4 weeks later?
Yeah.
We decided to go back and do a proper investigation of the auditorium.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went back, and Courtney saw someone there on campus that she knew, I think from her ghost tour. And they were telling us about, they had been in that auditorium and what they'd seen and felt in there. So, yeah, we went back to the auditorium. My sister was visiting, so we decided to have her help us lug all of our crap in there, get set up. And I don't know, I think she thought, I think that people think in general, investigations are very exciting and there's stuff happening the whole time.
Yes.
But just to give everyone an idea, you go into a place for an investigation, and you probably spend a good at least half hour to an hour setting up. And we don't have a whole crew, but we have, a bunch of stuff we have to set up. And normally you get that set up, you leave, and you come back later when it's later. You come back later when it's later. You come back later, and a lot of it is going from room to room with EMF and with recorders and seeing if there's any activity. And so we did that. I set up a camera. This auditorium has a stage, so we sat up on the stage, and I think there was a good amount of activity. My sister, though, my sister thinks that somebody should hop out and jump in front of you and talk to you. But we did actually get a lot of activity that night.
We did. And people think that because, with the shows, they edit out all the boring stuff. They edit out all the waiting around.
Right.
But, we got some great activity on the EMF.
Yep. EMF and the flashlights. And you talked to someone, I think, who was a student there.
Yes.
That had been a student. And my highlight of the evening for me was, picture everyone, you're in an auditorium. So it kind of goes high and it comes down to a stage. We're sitting on the stage. There are chairs there. And so in the back is the control room. And we're standing on the stage, and I'm up there staring, watching. And all of a sudden I see a black shadow from behind the glass in the control room walk from one side to the other, a very tall, dark shadow. Remember this? And
I do.
It's like, I didn't have a camera to take a picture of it, but I saw it. It was clear as day. I could see the cadence of it moving. And there's only 3 of us sitting on a stage. We can't be up, that's like probably 200 feet away up in the control room. And it only did it that one time. I didn't catch it again, but I did see it that night. And I suspect it was that dark, tall figure that person was talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I suspect that too. You're so funny when you catch something because you get so excited about it, which I do too.
I
still.
do.
You're like, Courtney.
Yeah, I am. I am. I swear I'm gonna keep a camera on me, so whenever I see them, I start snapping pictures. But it is because I've never seen an apparition. Isn't that kind of like an apparition?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the cool thing, you guys have known Tish now since, if you've been listening from the start or have gone back to the start of this, Tish hasn't had a ton of experience in this. She's enjoyed all the ghost TV shows and things. And she's like, oh, I don't have any special abilities, anything like that.
Yeah.
But what has been really cool is just seeing this transformation with you, because you have been gaining more awareness, and you've been seeing more.
Yeah. I mean, originally, for everyone listening to us, I wanted to produce and get into all the hardware and all the tech, and Courtney is a little shy. She's a little shy sometimes when we go live, and so I'm kind of like the MC. But I didn't. I didn't realize that I was actually going to experience some of this stuff myself. So that's been a lot of fun. But then I get I always say I'm the scaredy cat. So then after I'm like, cleanse me. I don't want to go home like this. Make sure I'm cleansed.
We always do.
But why don't you what do you recall and what do you remember about that night in the auditorium? Because I remember the flashlights were going crazy, but again, I think my sister expected someone to walk up to us.
Yeah. Oh, I think she did too.
I know.
But that's okay. Then you just tell people what it's actually like. It was really fun seeing the EMF detector go off and asking the different questions. It definitely was not at all a big emotional energy that was happening, but just someone who was pretty chill. And then we had the flashlights happen a couple times too then. And that was, I always love it when the flashlights turn on and off because the EMF is great. But what I love is that the flashlights, it just seems so authentic to me because there's nothing there touching them. With an EMF, it can also show colors when you're by electricity, and we weren't by electricity, quite frankly. But I really like the flashlights. It's so much more interactive. And when I say, hey, will you please turn off the flashlight, and it turns off, it's always just a cool experience.
Yeah. This brings up something that I think is worth mentioning, and that is that I think we're all, I'm not saying you because you're special. I'm not.
Yes, you are.
We're all conditioned from everything we see on TV, we're all conditioned to think that investigations are all this demonic stuff that happens and it's loud and things get thrown. And the reality is that the way that energy in houses and buildings and things like that gets shown is much more subdued than you think. It's apparent, but it's not like this demonic thing where you're sitting there and all of a sudden a vase comes and smacks you in the head. And I do think people expect that. And it's really not like that. It's really a lot of it is low key, and it's like an energy or a spirit having a conversation. That may not be exciting to people, but I know, Courtney, you really enjoy that because you get to learn and we get to hear a story from somebody, like why they're there, when were they there. But, if you're looking for, to be scared shitless and have to go to a priest, most of the time, these investigations aren't like that, right?
Oh, exactly. And what James Anito says, 1% of all the encounters that he's had and most people have, only 1% is demon or more negative, quote unquote, or emotional negative energy than what we're experiencing. And I totally believe that because I've had very minimal experiences that have impacted me in a negative way. And a lot of people, and I'll say this over and over again, but a lot of people, you're scared of the unknown. And because you can't see what's going on, people get scared and have a lot of anxiety about it. But if they were to take time to breathe and to ground themselves, they would realize that it's not a bad energy that's coming through. It just is a spirit that either wants to interact or just is like, hey, I'm here. Just say hi. They want attention.
Yeah, you're right. Especially, again, I'm going to go back to when we all see things on some of these shows, you'll notice that when something touches them or when they feel a cold, I was going to say a piece of cold air and some cold air, it's always when they're in the pitch black. And when you can't see and you don't know where to go and it's pitch black, I think you're much more sensitive to any change in anything. It could be for a lot of reasons, but I will say that there is more energy that we experience that is just benign, just they're hanging out there. And there are other energies that we've felt where we've felt nothing demonic. I've felt things that angry a few times, lots of grief when we feel something, grief and sadness, but nothing that I would describe as, like it's going to kill you or try to possess you. So I think that's really important to point out, because I know that everyone listening wants to hear about, a Ouija board that flips and smacks me in the head or something. It's just not the way it is. And, the funny thing is, and Courtney can tell you, because over the course of 20 years, Courtney has investigated hundreds and hundreds of times, and probably, I don't know, 10 were really active and most memorable with stuff that happened to you. James Anito said he has done over 400 deliverances, supposed deliverances of people that were possessed. And he's had, 2 or 3 that were actual.
Yep.
So
very small amount.
So we had a lot of activity, not anything to report like we had in Lara Soto, which was real. But I don't think either one of us, and that auditorium is something that you kept hearing about. I think Lara Soto had a lot more action than the auditorium.
I agree. And the auditorium has been there for a while, but not, the Lara Soto has so much more history to it.
Yeah.
I mean, even those first couple families who lived there, like that's a huge piece of their history, where this auditorium is a newer building, not new, of course, but what is likely there has been there since either maybe the college or, I mean, yes, it still could be indigenous people. It just is a different feeling, though. It feels more modern, if that makes sense.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm glad we did it. I'm not that into going back to the auditorium. I'm sure we could find some more stuff, but it wasn't really that interesting to me. Not like the Lara Soto.
No, not at all like that. Well, and I have more stories about the Lara Soto house too. I've met someone who has spent time in there, and they were talking about, they were walking across the street in front of this small room, has a door to it. They were walking past the door and they saw the blind open as though someone had opened between 2 of the slats, and as though an eyeball was peeking through, and then it quickly closed again.
Really?
Yeah. I thought that was super neat.
I don't know what I would do if I saw something like that.
And I also have heard that a lot of people don't like being in that room either, that they're just like, nope, I'm not going in there. It is not for me.
There's something about the energy in there.
There really
so
is.
He was like on the outside of the house, and he was like kind of looking at it, and he saw like something lift in between the blinds and look out.
Yeah. And then went in there just to make sure, went to go check, and nothing was there.
Is that the same person that you said saw or heard stuff in the parking garage? Or is that
No, that was someone different.
Courtney, I got to tell you guys, Courtney talks to everybody. And we haven't even talked about the library because we haven't been there yet. But Courtney's been in there, but we haven't investigated it. But she makes friends with all these people, and that's how we get into all these buildings. And so
I love hearing people's stories, it speaks volumes. I just love stories, and I've really discovered this love of history.
Yes, if you all listen when we talk about the history of this area as an example, one thing you may pick up on is Courtney loves to be able to talk about who used to be here and everything, and she's like a walking encyclopedia now. Here's a girl from Minnesota that is a walking encyclopedia of Monterey, California.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like one of the hotbeds in the country for all this activity between the forts and the lighthouses and everything. So, hey, I have a question for you. I've experienced this a few times. I experienced it at the auditorium, and I experienced it at the Lara Soto house. And there's been other times I didn't quite connect the dots, but I want to ask you, is it possible? Like, there are times when I'll be looking at something, and it, like, we could be on an investigation, but I also had I also had it happen at my house once, and something moves and catches in the peripheral of my eye, and if I don't look at it, it seems to continue to move, but as soon as I turn my head, it's not there. And like, at first I thought, well, maybe it's like a floater or something in my eye. I don't know. And it happened in the auditorium. And that's
Mhm.
how I first saw that shadow walking across the control room, is I was looking at the wall to the side, and I saw something out of the corner of my eye. When I first looked, it wasn't there. And so I'm like, okay, this is kind of a test. So I turn my head again and look at the wall, another wall, and I could see it again out of my peripheral. I watched that shadow go across that control room, all out of the side of my eye, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I
And
do.
can you explain, like, and I at first I thought, well, that it wasn't just there. It's happened to me before, and it's really clear. And what happened in my house was, I was watching something on television, and I kept seeing, it looked almost like a hand in a doorway across the room, like waving its hand in the door at me. And I could see it, and I look, and it's gone. And I'm like, oh, it must have been something in my eye or something. And so I turn back, and I'm watching TV, and I see it again. But only this time I don't look. I just let it keep going. And sure enough, it keeps going until I look and it's gone. And then I didn't have it happen again. What is this whole thing with peripheral vision and seeing things? But when you look at it, it's not there.
That happens a lot to me too. And I think it's a spirit that wants to get our attention, and it's easier for us to perhaps see it in our peripheral because we're just catching some motion, or something is catching our eye. But when you look at it straight on, I don't know that we're able to take in that information.
Right. Okay. I know that it's not anything threatening, because you can kind of feel that energy.
Correct.
But I noticed this. I never did it before, but I would say in the last, since I've been back, is when I started experiencing it. I experienced it at Lara Soto, when we were in that big room, and I kept catching something, at the end where that other table was, where we had our backpacks and stuff. I kept catching something black in the corner. And if I wasn't looking at it, I could see it. But if I turned my head and looked, it wasn't there.
Yep.
Is this the same sort of thing?
I think so. And the interesting thing too about our peripheral vision, it's more monochromatic. It is, and more responsive to movement. So I think that's also why is that it is harder to see that face on, because we're also taking in all of this. So to catch it out of the corner of your eye, it's more focused, if that makes sense. Like when we're looking at something straight on, our view is pretty wide, meaning you can see out pretty far. And when something catches our eye and it's only in one spot, you can focus a little bit more, even if you're not looking straight at it. But when we're looking at something straight on, we see so much more.
That makes sense. Well, when I was telling you about what happened to me, you were telling me you work in this office that's in a house, basically.
Yes.
Okay. So when I told you what happened to me, I want you to share what just happened to you recently at your office.
It is so cool. So some of the people have said that they suspect there's spirits around. And there are some. They're very non-threatening. They're pretty chill spirits. I'm working late one night, and we had a door that was open, and out of my peripheral, I see a shadow of someone just hanging out watching me. And of course, a lot of people would freak out about that or be scared because understandably so. We're scared of the things that we don't know or can't really see. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I just go back and doing what I'm doing. And then I see it again and I look again straight on, can't see it again. And so I'm like, all right, well, I just got to get this done. So I'm finishing up some work and there it is again. And as I'm just typing and working, because I don't want to turn straight on, I just start talking to this spirit and seeing what's going on. And they're like, oh, we're just curious about what's happening around here. So it's no big deal, not at all. And again, nothing I've felt there has been threatening whatsoever. It just is interesting. And the spirits are interested in what we're doing there.
Wow. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
So what's coming up? Do you have any investigations coming up? I'm going to be leaving for Michigan next month.
I know. I want to get back to Fort Ord and do a little bit more digging there.
Oh, yeah. We did swing by there that one night. We got there and there was somebody like living in their car, but we felt uncomfortable. It wasn't comfortable. That's the ghost car, everyone. It was a real car, but that's the story where the ghost car came up the street at us. So I would love to. I think we should let's try to do that next week.
Yeah, let's do that.
I would love, we'll have to figure this out. I would love to get you out to Michigan sometime between now and October, because I wrote St. Eloise. St. Eloise is that hugely haunted, it used to be a hospital. Mm-hmm. It was a poorhouse, Wayne County in the city of Detroit. It was a poorhouse. It was a hospital. It was a sanitarium. They do haunted tours and stuff through there, but I wrote them. And I just didn't tell you this yet, so you're going to be excited. They've agreed to let us spend the night in there.
No way.
Yeah.
That is so exciting.
I just heard from them earlier this week. And they said, we just can't do it around Halloween because they do a big business around Halloween. I'm like, okay, well, let me talk to Courtney and see what we come up with. You all should look up St. Eloise in Detroit, in the Detroit metro area. Every show has been there, and there is some stuff in there that is real and it is sick. Like there's some bad energy in there. I'm looking forward. I want one evil one. I haven't had anything that was evil. I want to see what that's like, because that's what we all want when we do this stuff, when we watch it on TV. I know you don't. Courtney doesn't want that. Courtney just wants to help.
I've had enough experiences of that.
Yeah.
I'm good. I mean, I don't mind. It's fine.
So this is my public plea to Courtney. We got to find some weekend she can make it out. If we stay the whole night, that'll be enough time, and we'll get into Eloise. So there you have it.
That is so cool. Yeah, I haven't been to Winchester yet out here, and that would be a lot of fun to do the Winchester. And then I'm also would love to do the Westin in San Jose that I actually drove by a couple of weeks ago. And I said, hey, that Westin, isn't that where Gilda stayed? And she told us about. And indeed, I received confirmation from you and her that is the place she's had a good amount of experiences. There's something about a bride.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. Well, let's see what happens. I think
lots of cool stuff.
That's probably a good wrap for this one. What do you think?
Yep. I think so.
I think so too. So, until next time, I'm Tish.
And I'm Courtney.
And we're spirits and cousins.
We sure are. Don't forget to reach out to us on Instagram, TikTok. We're also now on Blue Sky. And of course, YouTube.
YouTube has all of our stuff on there. And don't forget, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your stories. So write Courtney. I say write Courtney. spiritsandcousins@gmail.com. Thanks,
Have a good
everyone.
one.
Have a good one. Take care.